Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have some really interesting news to share with you guys. We may have smoking gun evidence against not just Donald Trump, but Pam Bondi, Kash Patel. Actually, the smoking gun evidence against Bondi and Patel is pretty much a sure thing. It's proven at this point. Maybe on Donald Trump. So I'm going to explain all this, but unfortunately, given that they control all of government, we're never going to get the real story. We're never going to get all of the evidence against him that we need to prosecute. So here's the deal. Here's what's going on. Jeffrey Epstein wrote a letter that seemingly wrote a letter, I should say, implicating Donald Trump in his crimes against children. The FBI also received a tip about Donald Trump and Epstein allegedly violating a woman. And there's also clear evidence that Bondi and Patel lied when they said that there was no evidence of any third party committing any crimes. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm furious with Barack Obama and Joe Biden over this. So evidently, Jeffrey Epstein or someone else sent a letter to fellow child predator Larry Nassar. You will remember him. He was the doctor for the U.S. women's gymnastics team. And he was convicted, sentenced to prison for many, many years for violating children in that regard. So Jeffrey Epstein, or like I said, someone sent this letter to Larry Nassar saying that Donald Trump is basically part of their club. And that letter was accidentally released by the government before they then pulled it down off the website, and now they've put it back up. So this was the report that came out today, or one of the reports on this. The letter was postmarked August 13th, 2019. So that would have been 3 days after Epstein died. And, the DOJ is saying, well, we verified a bunch of things and it doesn't add up. And so this letter was fake. That's very possible. It is very possible that this was fake. And I'll explain why. Because here it is here. Here's a photograph of the letter and of the envelope up above. The letter reads, if you can't make it out, quote, "Dear LN, Larry Nassar, as you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We share one thing in common, our love and caring for young ladies at the hope that they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shares our love of young nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab snatch. Whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Yours, J. Epstein." Now, I didn't read the full thing, but this is why I say it could have been, they could be telling the truth on this one thing, and it could have been written by somebody else. Because as you heard in the beginning, it says by now you know I've taken the short route home. So that would indicate he's already gone, right? Because he didn't know he was going to be, well, maybe. I mean, if it was truly suicide, then maybe he did know he was planning to off himself. But if he was suicided, as we all suspect, right? And it wasn't really at his own discretion and hand, then no, he wouldn't have known. So yeah, it depends if he actually did take his own life or if it was taken from him. But if this was really written by Jeffrey Epstein, how sick these predators are, right? I mean, they convince themselves, oh, I'm helping these victims. I'm helping these girls. Or it's because they wanted it. They all need to be put down. They need to be put down like rabid animals. Anyway, the DOJ was given this letter after Epstein's death because it was marked return to sender, as you may be able to make out. That's the red stamp that you see on the envelope. The reason this was returned was because Larry Nassar had been moved to a different prison. So this letter ultimately was handed over to the FBI's New York office, and then they requested a handwriting analysis. So that was reported in this Daily Beast report. Or no, this was Raw Story, I think, reported this particular article was published at least by them, but this was reported by multiple news outlets today. So they wrote in this letter, which was again released today, FBI New York requests the laboratory perform a handwriting analysis comparing the letter received from MCC, which was the prison, and the handwriting of Jeffrey Epstein to conclude if the individual who wrote the letter was Epstein or another unknown person. Handwriting samples from Jeffrey Epstein's cell at MCC will be submitted along with the letter in question in IA envelope 1A65. So we don't know if that analysis was ever performed. There's nothing to show that it was ever performed. Like I said, though, the DOJ is out today saying, oh, yeah, we already looked at a bunch of different factors and we already determined that this is bogus. This was not real. And this was somebody else wrote it. I'd like to see that evidence, wouldn't you? In any case, as I said before, this could be the nail in the coffin for Trump. I don't know. I mean, he already looks suspicious as hell because he's been hiding all of this since he took office. Plus we know he was accused back in 2016. Mentioned this many times. There was a lawsuit filed by a woman. She claims that she was violated by Trump and Epstein when she was only 13. To make matters worse for Trump and his regime, there was also a list of potential co-conspirators that was released this week. So the Miami Herald published an article this morning. In it, they wrote, and I'll bring this up for you guys, quote, the FBI had a list of 10 possible co-conspirators to Epstein's crimes. An FBI investigator with the Crimes Against Children Human Trafficking Unit on July 9, 2019, noted that 3 of the co-conspirators were in Florida, 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, and 1 in Connecticut. It also noted that 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio. So that wealthy businessman in Ohio is Les Wexner. He is the founder of Victoria's Secret. He has, of course, denied any and all wrongdoing for many years now. But for some reason, he was one of Jeffrey Epstein's biggest benefactors. And nobody knows why. So the fact that this was not only being investigated by the Child Trafficking Division, but you also now have written evidence that they believe there were 10 co-conspirators. This directly contradicts what Pam Bondi and Kash Patel have been saying. Remember, they claimed no co-conspirators. Nothing more to investigate, nobody to investigate. This was all just Jeffrey Epstein alone, totally acted alone. In Bondi, her exact quote was, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." So they are flat out lying. They're just lying. And there was another potential smoking gun in this last batch of documents. There was, and I mentioned this at the beginning, there was a tip reported to the FBI in 2016. This came from a limo driver who claims he has knowledge of Trump and Epstein's crimes on two different fronts. So I'm going to explain this to you. So the FBI must have spoken with this driver at some point because they drafted a report about this. So here's the first part of it. The names of the driver and the woman that he's referring to have been redacted, as you can see, but it says in part, quote, during Redacted's time as a driver, he had met Donald Trump. Redacted noted he picked the president up in 1995 and took him to DFW Airport. Redacted reported some of the things President Trump had spoken about during the ride while on his cell phone were very concerning. Redacted reported he was a few seconds from pulling the limousine over on the median and within a few seconds of pulling him out of the car and hurting him, meaning Trump, due to some of the things he was saying. Redacted noted Trump continuously stated the name Jeffrey while on the phone and made references to, quote unquote, abusing some girl. Redacted was unsure who he was talking to, nor who he was referencing. So this limo driver is so pissed off at what he's hearing from Trump, what he's hearing Trump say on this phone call, that the guy's like, I'm about to pull over and whoop this guy's ass. I'm about to beat the shit out of Donald Trump because of the things he's saying about harming a child. And then the report switches to talking about the limo driver speaking with a female passenger who he drove at a later date. They didn't specify when this conversation took place, but it must have taken place before the year 2000, and I'll explain why in a minute. So the report, I was going to say article, but the report goes on to say, quote, as Redacted talked about his time meeting Donald Trump, Redacted went stone cold as Redacted stated, he raped me. So the limo driver is telling this woman, oh, yeah, I met Donald Trump. I actually drove him one time. She goes stone cold and says, he raped me. Redacted replied, what? Meaning the driver. As Redacted replied, meaning the woman, Donald J. Trump had raped her along with Jeffrey Epstein. Redacted noted, meaning the woman, some girl with a funny name took me into a fancy hotel or building. That's how it happened. So this is absolutely consistent with all of the stories we've heard from all of the Epstein's victims saying that they were scouted by other girls or by Ghislaine Maxwell, that, you know, they were recruited by these other girls and Ghislaine Maxwell and then they would take them to Epstein. I mean, a funny name would obviously be Ghislaine, right? No other name, at least that I've heard, involved with Jeffrey Epstein is as odd or quote unquote funny as Ghislaine. So, and then the report goes on to suggest and mentions Ghislaine, that this female was later found dead after she reported the assault. So the investigator also went on to write, let me bring this one up for you guys. Oh, sorry, guys. Wrong one. So here it is. Redacted advised Redacted, I believe that means the driver advised this woman, to call the police regarding the incident, as Redacted stated, I can't, they will kill me. So the driver's encouraging her to call the police and she's saying, I can't, they'll kill me. On Christmas Day, Redacted contacted Redacted, stated she had in fact called the police about what they had talked about. So meaning the driver and her spoke again. after driving her, spoke with her on Christmas, said, hey, I ended up calling the police. I took your advice. I did it. Redacted told Redacted she had done good. That was in quotes. So it sounds like the driver told her, hey, you did good. I'm glad you did that, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to say, Redacted reached out to Redacted, stating Redacted was dead and noted she was found with her head, quote unquote, blown off in Kiefer, Oklahoma. Officers on the scene and Redacted stated there was no way it was suicide. Coroner stated it was suicide. Redacted later stated Redacted committed suicide because Redacted had gotten cocaine from a Mexican drug cartel. Redacted feels the murder is a cover for Ghislaine. So it seems like there was a police report, must have been, because this officer or investigator is saying, hey, police who were on the scene said this doesn't seem like a suicide. And then the coroner said, oh yeah, it was. Okay. Who are you going to believe, right? A police officer who's there in real time taking a report and writing this down, or a coroner who is later looking at the case after it's known that she's gone and could be bought off, right? And obviously other people are saying, no, this was definitely not suicide. This had to do with Ghislaine Maxwell. So, I mean, this is something that can be easily verified or debunked, right? I mean, obviously there are reports. There are real-time police reports. The fact that there's no record of what was done to follow up on this tip definitely raises a lot of suspicion. And what I want to know is, well, no, this wouldn't be the same woman if she was in fact found dead. So, this is a second woman outside of the one who reported and filed a lawsuit in 2016 about Epstein and Trump. So this is another one, right? Because if this woman was found deceased around 2000, which is, what this is all dated, because this was reported in 2016. I mean, I don't know, right? And it says in here, as you may be able to see, that blank did not, or Redacted did not hear from Redacted or Redacted until January 10th, 2000. So I'm assuming, or actually I've got that backwards. So I think he reported this in 2000. I think he reported this as the 2020 election was going on. In any case, this appears to be a completely separate person, separate from Katie Johnson, the other person who has accused Trump. Also, as I mentioned, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, this tells us they're stone cold busted. They have been lying for months now. On top of everything that I had already mentioned to you guys, though, there's even more evidence that they've been lying. So check this out. So this is one of the documents that was just released. I'm not going to read the full thing, but this is a victim statement which flat out states that this girl and others were kept in stalls, like similar to horse stalls. And she says that Epstein would bring other men into the room, and this was supposedly underground somewhere, bring them into this room where all these stalls were, where all these girls are being held, and Epstein would show them off. He would walk the men up and down, to look at them. And then, he would make comments about them. And then Epstein allegedly told them that if they, quote unquote, performed well with other men, they could then become Epstein's girlfriend. And this alleged victim stated that she was assaulted by Epstein and, quote unquote, other men. So Bondi and Patel lied to Congress under oath. They lied when they said there are no other men involved. There's nothing else to see here. We looked at this. We looked at all the evidence. There's no third parties, blah, blah, blah. So who are they protecting and why? And then check this out, you guys. So this was another one that came up. This was another document that was released, and it says this was apparently reported, I guess, in October of 2020, and it talks about these women who went to a party, they went to someone's house. They try, one of them was warning the other one to like stick with me, let's stick together because, you don't want to go end up in any of the rooms with these people. Ghislaine Maxwell is mentioned that she apparently invited some of these people. She was the hostess of one of these, of this party. And then further down towards the bottom, it says that they were also invited to go to a party that Donald Trump was hosting at Mar-a-Lago. And the one woman who was warning the other one, she said to her, look, I don't know if we should go because it's not that kind of party. She said it was for quote unquote prostitutes. So she's warning this other woman like, hey, this isn't just like, hey, let's hang out, have fun and dance or whatever. This is for quote unquote prostitutes. Whether or not this is legitimate, whether or not this was followed up on and investigated, we don't know. We don't know. But this was just released as well. So a lot of damning stuff, all of the MAGA influencers on Twitter trying to spin all of this. Oh, it's all Bill Clinton. And the left won't condemn him. Fuck Bill Clinton. Nobody on the left cares about Bill Clinton, and the Democratic Party should never, ever again have him at any of their events. Just to be clear, MAGA, we have no love loss for Bill Clinton. We think he's gross. We think that what he is accused of doing is gross with adults. He has not been accused by anyone of doing anything to an underage child, but he has been accused by many adult women. Him hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein is gross, just as it is with Donald Trump. Him cheating on his wife, what he did with Monica Lewinsky, putting her in that compromising position as an underling, as someone who, is young and impressionable, gross, should have been run out of office at that point. And that was a mistake by the Democrats, 100%. I hope to never see or hear from him and his disgusting wife again, his genocide-denying wife ever again. Hope that clears it up. Will just one of you say the same fucking thing about Donald Trump? He has been accused of violating children, at least one child that we have heard of. Where is your outrage? Where is your condemnation? So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. There's all these pictures of Clinton. Okay. What about these accusations against Donald Trump? When is one MAGA person? Actually, I have seen one. I take that back. I will admit I have seen one on Twitter, and she has been speaking out vehemently for months against Trump. I can't remember. I think she goes by like Patriotic Blonde or something like that. And yeah, she's about the only one who's calling him out for this shit. So other than her, none of you have a leg to stand on. You have no moral ground here, no ethics, no principles, unless you can step up and say, yes, this looks bad. And this is not what we bargained for, and he's not who we thought he was. Anyway, I'm not going to hold my breath. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like this video. Please share it with others so they know what all's going on. Subscribe if you have not. Trying to get to 250,000 by the end of this year. So if you can help out with that, I really appreciate it. If you can donate, truly appreciate that as well. Happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, whatever, blows your hair back and you believe in. Be great. Have a fun day, a safe day. Love you all. Take care, and I will talk with you soon.